Hey, y'all. Yeah, y'all. Kohberger face getting kind of shaky like a leg now. Don't know, y'all. The evidence coming up, and these evidence is somehow planting the seeds on Bryan Kohberger. Before we get started, go ahead on and like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Work on getting membership. I appreciate y'all, and I want y'all to know that y'all are doing an awesome job with the comment section. And y'all, we're gonna get into what's going on with Kohberger. They don't find they put out there they ordered a knife. He ordered the knife, but they can't find it. It has the sheet, but they don't have the knife. Now they accused Bryan Kohberger of ordering a ski mask, but it's a lot of people ordering ski masks. That's the kind of ski mask that they're looking for? Yeah. Paperwork shows Bryan Kohberger bought a ski mask before conducting his murder. Y'all believe that? But if you don't, they gotta prove it. They gotta make us believe it, right? So before we get into our content, close that screen and stop letting all them flies up in here. Now you know how funny Eddie Grandma feel about them flies. Now look, y'all. Court filings reveals Bryan Kohberger purchased a black Balaclava and a K-bar knife months before the Idaho student murders, potentially linking him to the crime. Now, the prosecutor had this all hid from the defense attorney. Okay? Now they got him shaking like leaves. Now, the prosecutor planned to use Kohberger's criminology paper. Remember he did a paper, he wrote a paper, guy? Yeah, he did a report. Remember that paper he wrote? Okay, well, anyway, they trying to say that paperwork, that his criminology paper that he had to turn into the teacher was really talking about a crime that he was going to commit. And something. But I don't know yet. But anyway, now that paperwork gave them some details of the crime scene investigation, forensic evidence collection to show his knowledge of murder investigation. Now y'all remember that Bryan wasn't gonna talk at first, right? Bryan had me believing that he didn't do this, but I still can't see it though. Still can't. They gotta prove it to me. Now, Bryan Kohberger is a PhD student in criminology, live just 15 minutes from the victims, and is set to stand trial in August, y'all, with the prosecutor seeking the death penalty. That's what we working on, getting on the death penalty. Okay. So cut the music for me, DJ. Now, News Nation, they always have a report. So we're gonna let them talk about News Nation, speak on this, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and we're gonna react to it. Okay. All right. And by the way, shout out to News Nation.
Her description of a mask wearing intruder with bushy eyes. The defense says, well, that witness, that surviving roommate, was influenced by the detectives on the case. And they point to the fact that she admits she was drunk that night when she saw a stranger walking past her bedroom door. For what that's worth. In Mrs. Kohberger's purchase K-bar knife, which has never been found, and a knife sheath. That one matched the one found near two of the victims' bodies, and Kohberger's DNA claims that his Amazon purchase and his browsing history that show he bought a K-bar knife and bought a knife sharpener and bought a sheath, a K-bar sheath. Well, the defense says that browsing history should be inadmissible because at the time he was living with his family, and other users could have been doing the typing, searching, and the sheath may have been part of a larger purchase with like camping supplies, including a tire inflator, a backpack, and bear spray. That is some good defense work right there. Because a tire inflator, backpack, and a K-bar knife in Pennsylvania, that would make sense. But if you can't produce a K-bar knife, or the sheath, or the sharpener, maybe not so much. Don't forget, he was also known to search, apparently according to the state, for a replacement knife and sheath. As for his medical conditions, we've got answers for that. Makes it impossible for Kohberger to be able to slash 4 people to death in such a short period of time. And the state has an answer for that. That a doctor says Bryan's condition was a thing of the past, something that hasn't affected him for many, many years. And whatever he's got left is like the fine motor skills. You know, believe me. But I'm going to stop here and bring in the best resource I can think of in this story, and that is our own Bryan Enton. Okay, Bryan, let's start with the Balaclava. Again, you know, I couldn't believe it today, showing that they have the receipts. The state has the receipts for the black Balaclava from Dick's Sporting Goods. However, if I'm the defense, I'll say this: Idaho. It is freezing in Idaho. February in winter.
She is right. It's cold. It's freezing. It's snowing. How many people out there got their face covered up with a black mask, ski mask? They got to prove that. Now, look, y'all, I want to stick this in there, okay? This is what they trying to say that Kohberger history purchased. This is what he purchased. Now, what they're trying to say is what they are saying, the prosecutor. The purchase was made in January 2022, 11 months before the stabbing death of Kaylee, Madison, Zana, Zana, and Ethan. That's what they trying to say. Now, another prosecution filing showed Kohberger went on Amazon to buy a K-bar compact knife and a sheath 8 months before the murders, and then shot for a replacement days after they took place. This is what they're saying, y'all. This is what they're saying. Now, according to Latah County, the coroner, all 4 victims died with multiple stabbing wounds. At least 2 of them were so intoxicated at the time of the attack that they were unable to resist at all. Now, the prosecutor wrote in the court filing that under Morgan's body, the police found the K-bar knife sheath stamped with a United States Marine Corps logo, y'all, making me think that it was somebody who done been in service before. And containing, now allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly containing Kohberger DNA on the snap. Now, y'all, those are the things that they trying to accuse him of purchasing, trying to purchase before 11 months before the killing. So let's turn it back to news.
how the jury feels about it.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point that the defense likely will make. There was another just mountain of documents that were released late today that you mentioned that we're still going through, reading the footnotes. A lot of these new nuggets, these bombshell nuggets, are sort of buried in the documents, including this latest about the balaclava, which, by the way, just to be honest, I didn't even know what a balaclava was. At first, I was thinking baklava, like the Greek food, but no, it is a mask. You see it on your screen. That's what it looks like. It's similar to like something that we would wear skiing or that you'd wear on a very, very cold day. And the state got all of the records, got all of the shopping records, has the receipt from Dick's Sporting Goods, and says that Bryan Kohberger bought that on Jan 10th, 2022, 11 months before the murders. You mentioned it, he was still living in Pennsylvania, and that they plan to bring this in during the trial, Ashley.
So, obviously question number one would be, that's fine if you bought the balaclava in Pennsylvania, or if your family bought the balaclava in Pennsylvania, a black balaclava, in the, things that they seized from his apartment in Washington. That would be one thing. But I never saw one on the manifest, did you?
No, I do not remember seeing it on the manifest. Granted, a lot of new things continue to come out. It's possible that we just don't have that document because we didn't even know that the balaclava existed or was part of this until today with this latest document dump. I also think this is going to be really interesting, and I'm curious whether this comes up. Since he was living with his family, there's been talk of a shared Amazon account. So how are they going to prove who actually bought Ask? Because you mentioned, if you live in a cold climate, could have been anyone in the family.
The family wants to help his defense more than likely, so just produce the balaclava. And oftentimes, Bryan, detectives can do amazing things by matching certain fabrics with certain information on it. Maybe they could go deep and find out if they do provide a balaclava, if it is the actual one that was purchased. That happened in trial until I married somebody who gets cold skiing and skis with one of those. But they are not every household has one of those. So they're unusual purchases. Speaking of that, go to that a little deeper, Bryan, that the fact that the defense will say Bryan Kohberger was living at home in Pennsylvania and they were sharing, Amazon purchases throughout the family. So you don't know who was doing the typing or doing the purchasing. And that would extend to the night, right? And any other purchases that they find unusual.
That's right. Yeah, right. Yeah, this is crazy. They're gonna do this. Share this information with y'all. So y'all, in college, in grad school, you have to write a paper, okay? Research paper. They don't call it a research paper. They call it a paper. So since he in criminology, he's gonna have to write a scary, a real crime thing. So they trying to use his paper that he wrote against him for this killing. And I'm trying for this murder. So I want to see how they're gonna do that. They say that in the paper, Kohberger gives step-by-step instruction on collecting evidence, and that's what they're supposed to do in a research paper, and documenting a murder scene. His procedural checklist includes a detailed imagining of the victim and the circumstances of her death. Now, the deceased, this is what his paperwork, this is what his research paper is saying, y'all. Since he in criminology now. The deceased woman in her living room, specific shots should be focused on the evidence of harm on her body and clothing. The bruises on her face, the marks on her neck, the bloody shirt, and any other signs of post mortem liberty should be photographed. Kohberger wrote, does she have defensive wounds? Are there hesitation marks on her related to the knife? Or are there multiple stab wounds? Is there any signs of forced entry to the home? If there's not focused interest, it may be subject that the woman knew her killer. Now, Bryan, the 12-page paper, y'all, mentioned many of the same methods used to identify Kohberger as a suspect in the killing, such as recovery of genetics evidence and collecting nearby civilian footage. Now, quote, I should make sure to swab under her fingernail to see if the DNA of the offender is there. She lightly dug into their skin, quote unquote. Kohberger also mentioned inside his paper, his research paper, uh, Kohberger stresses a thorough examination is necessary to discover and document even the smallest items at the crime scenes, unquote. Quote, the location of the evidence is very important, for it may give us the following information, establishing the tracing of our identification of the suspect, unquote. Kohberger wrote. Now, quote, establishing the suspect's modus operandi, uh, confirming alibi, are exposing lies, connecting suspect to the crime, of eliminating suspects. Kohberger also discusses inside his paper why should meticulous attention to detail is necessary for maintaining the integrity of the evidence. Quote, failing to do so leads to injustice. There could be a very clear link between victim and offender, but if this is not accounted for, change of the custodian, then it would be inadmissible, unquote. Now, also, I'm not going to tell y'all all of them. I'm just telling you that's what they're going to present about his paper, research paper. Okay, Kohberger was described as, quote, one of my best students ever. That's what the teacher said, unquote, by one of his D-Cells professors. This is what the professor said. And he was one of the only students she recommended for the PhD program. At the time of the murder program was living, he was living in Pullman while pursuing a doctorate criminology at Washington University. His campus apartment was about 15 minutes drive from the victim's home, just over the state line in Moscow, Idaho. Now I'm gonna turn back over. That was his professor said, y'all. He was so smart, so he think he's smarter than anybody. Oh, hold on, y'all. Sorry.
well, if they get called as witnesses, they're not allowed to be in the courtroom before that. They may not be allowed to be. This could very well be the reason. The state may want the knife. They'll, explain.
Oh, I'll go one further. Where's the knife? Where is the knife shot? The same computer. I think we're well past accounts in our own computers, but I'll give the defense that it's just family member bought. I'm sure they would still
on the case. That's what they're doing, saying the death penalty. Now he has again in Arkansas on his trial. And tell me what you think in the comment section where it's that don't mean that he did it, because just tell me what you think, what we just said. Okay, y'all like, share, and subscribe. I'm out.